Now look, I'm the leader of this squad, so listen up. You said Dracula knows we're here, so let's just try to find the amulet. And get the hell out of here.
Take him in the Nards! Take him in the Nards! He doesn't have Nards! Do it!
Wolfman's got Nards!
Come on! Come on!
Welcome, everyone, to my bloody podcast. We're so excited to have this episode come to you today. Oh, my gourd. I'm Bryan Kluger, and I'm joined by the host with the most, the man who I want to go searching out and exploring monsters with, Preston Barta. What's up, buddy?
Not much. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm just ecstatic. I'm excited. And I'm just so excited that we have an excellent guest today, a legendary intercontinental champion of film, television, movies. Oh, man. Andre Gower. What's up, bud?
We're the Monster Squad.
That very well may be at the top of the list of intros. I didn't know there was a intercontinental title, but I'm glad. I'll take it. I'll take it.
You hold it, man. You hold it.
I will take it.
I gave you a little room to breathe there because there is a universal champion spot. So there, we got there.
Look, you know, baby steps. Baby steps.
Baby
And,
steps.
Baby steps through the office.
I'll start training as soon as we log off, and we'll see what we can do.
So we're going to talk to Andre today about his new doc that he directed and wrote and produced and all that good stuff. Wolfman's Got Nards, which is an amazing exploration and retrospective of the film The Monster Squad, which Andre starred in, and its fans and its cult status and love, appreciation, and passion over the years. But first, we have to start at the very beginning, Andre. Where did it all start with you in film? Was it something that you watched when you were little? How did you get into this business? What was that passion, that spark that got you here?
Where did the itch?
Well, I mean, I started in this industry at a very young age. So I think that's sort of, I don't know if that was the itch or if that was like I was just thrown into the briar patch to get all cut up. When you start something, when you're like, I don't know, a career at 5 or 6, it's just, I don't know really of a time that, film and TV wasn't a part of my existence. You start out at a very young age. My sister was in the business before I was. She's a couple years older than I am. And so that was just sort of, either the gateway or, the slip and slide right into the, into just being next in line. But it was, one of those things, you hear a lot of stories, with kids in the business, and especially at a young age, is it really your decision? Is it somebody else's decision? What is it? My parents were, pretty cool, pretty awesome, pretty supportive and protective. But it was just something that everybody was interested in. And I was around it, being around my sister. And I think a lot of times, especially with young kids, it's like fish out of water. And then sometimes it's like a duck in water. And I think I was just a duck in the water. Like I, jumped in and I was comfortable and swam around and, could live in, ducks can live in the water and live on the land too. So
No one laughs at a master of quack fu and
I grew up with 2 different experiences, but I don't see either one as a detraction from the other. They're just value adds that helped both. So what was the spark? I think just being around, a very unique opportunity from a very young age, and to grow up and do a ton of television and films and just be around, performers and entertainers and creatives and executives. And, it's something very unique, and not everybody in the world gets to experience all that. So, you kind of got to appreciate just the opportunity a little bit. They kind of either set you on your path or, give you a little bit of, cognitive development, help as you're a young age and figure out who you are and what you are and where you are. So it just kind of, it envelops everything and it leads to cool stuff.
Was it something that maybe your family asked you, like, hey, do you like acting? And you said, oh yeah, okay, let's do this. Or
Yeah, I don't even remember if that happened. I mean, so young. I think we're just around it and just started doing it because my sister worked quite a bit, at a young age, and her being a little bit older, I was always tagging along with either my mother or my dad or my sister. My sister wasn't driving to auditions when she was 10, but you're just kind of around it. I think I was just next. I think I was just kind of like, hey, you're going to enjoy this as well. See if it works. And like I said, I think it works. I jumped in and started swimming. So
And you did that, and I know you've mentioned before, at least to me, that you love the education and teaching whatever arena there is in that. And so did you take any classes on acting, or like you said, you just jumped in and perfect to go?
yeah, even at a young age, there's always classes or workshops or group things to do, and I did a little of that. I didn't do too much. I think it was I was fortunate enough to not be intimidated by it, to understand how to take direction, how to do things, and have some semblance of natural ability to kind of convey what's supposed to be conveyed. You can always improve and you can always get feedback and do it better, and I think that's when people succeed a little bit easier if they're open to that. But as I got older, I didn't do the whole Strasberg or Stella Adler or the method workshops or anything like that. I kind of went the other path. It was, hey, this is something fun. It's something it's relatively simple, although you got to know a lot of things, how to do them and do them well, and got to be professional. And that doesn't mean I'm diminishing workshops or schools or schools of teaching or method acting or anything. Some of the best ones out there are strict method actors, and they are phenomenal. I just never did. I don't know if I had the extra time to do it, because not only did I work quite a bit as a kid, if you're not on a set, you're going, I always went to, regular school if I wasn't on, actively working. And then I was always busy with extracurricular stuff like, organized sports and activities and events, whether they were industry related or not industry related. So I don't know where I would have crammed that in. Somewhere between, baseball practice, school, and basketball practice, and friends' birthday parties. I don't know.
Oh, that's great. And what age were you when you first got notice of Monster Squad script? And I guess my second part to that question is, you've done projects before Monster Squad, and then you read Monster Squad, and it seems like the best production for a kid at any age, really, to be a part of. So what was your thoughts, and like, I got to do this? What was that like?
Well, it's it's easy in hindsight to go back and go, what was it like to find out and like read manga, go, this is, an amazing thing. Like, you don't know what anything is going to be until you actually see it or do it or experience it. And it all ended up being awesome. That was the summer of '86, or early fall of '86, August, September, or something like that. Just regular audition process, and at this time I'm 13. I'm right in the middle of kind of a building kind of robust TV run and trajectory, and working quite a bit, especially at that time, and then including Monster Squad and after Monster Squad. I did a lot of television and a lot of episodics, a lot of guest spots, a lot of and a lot of series. And I always joke that I was one of the the younger actors in that time that was fortunate enough to do a lot of the work. But I did 5 or 6 TV shows that went 1 season instead of one show that went 6 seasons that everybody knows, And so I kind of have this kind of hodgepodge kind of television resume, but some of it's pretty bitchin'. And, would you trade that to do one show for 5, 6, 7 years and then that's your thing? Who knows? But leading up to the Monster Squad, it was, a lot of people know it, and I don't know if, we've discussed it before in the past, but I never auditioned one time for the role of Sean. I originally auditioned for the role of Rudy, and because up until that time, sort of my latest body of work and appearances and characters on TV shows and stuff was, the cool kid with, a lot of hair product and, leather jacket maybe. And that was just sort of like an obvious, audition submission at that time, and got called in to read for this movie that no one knew anything about. But it was a big studio movie, big budget, supposed to have a lot of action, a lot of monsters, whatever. And then you really don't get all the information when you're just auditioning the first, 2 or 3 times. You're just getting, a couple scenes. And then you read the whole script and then you realize that, whoa, this is kind of a big, big thing. And then a couple weeks later, you get the call and, your agent says, hey, that movie you read for, a couple weeks ago, they cast you in it. And first of all, the question is, well, which one? Because at that time we're all reading for everything like daily, right? You're going on 1, 2, 3, 5 auditions a day, in the afternoon sometimes when you're lucky enough to be in that kind of category. And, said, oh, the Monster Squad. Oh, great. And like, well, they didn't cast you in the role that you auditioned for. And that's usually terrible news. It's usually like, oh, they give you a lesser role or a smaller role or a different role. And I was a little deflated, and they're like, no, it's good news. They actually just straight cast you as the lead. And I was like, damn it. No, that Rudy character was the awesome one. He got to kill all the characters and he's the cool kid. Oh man. But look, I always say, I know exactly why all that happened. I know Ryan Lambert walked into that final audition and just murdered it. And he became Rudy that day, and he always has been. Could I have played Rudy in the movie? Sure. Would it have been okay? Sure. It'd have been fun and maybe a little campy or a little bit more forced. But it would have worked. But Ryan is Rudy. And it just, we know that everybody's in their right spot. And, I've been looking back at that kind of instance. I've been telling that story for years, but recently I've realized that I'm very fortunate that whoever it was, whether it was the casting director, Penny Perry, or Fred, or Shane, or Peter Hines, or somebody in that room, after the fact that Ryan comes in and nails Rudy, that they said, well, who are we going to cast as Sean? And they read dozens of people for Sean. And they go, what about that one kid that we read for Rudy that, we liked, but didn't choose him for Rudy? Could he be Sean? And someone said, yeah, let's, take the gunk out of his hair, give him a terrible haircut, put him in some clothes that don't fit. And I think he could be Sean. And they never had a meeting, never auditioned, never had to read Sean live. They just straight cast me. And, you got to realize that you're really fortunate enough when somebody has that kind of, foresight or, different angle of thinking, because they could have just picked from the pool of kids that actually auditioned for Sean, and we wouldn't be sitting here today.
Hey, but you got to kill the big baddie at the end, though.
Yeah. Like I said, it all worked out. Rudy kills more monsters, gets the girl. He's the cool one. Everybody loves Rudy. But everybody worked out to be in the exact, perfect spot. And yeah, Sean gets to kill Dracula, which is not a bad claim to fame.
Yeah. At what point in the script did you realize that this was something really special? Because I think for the audience, it's that text that's on the screen, and then at the very bottom it says they blew it, and you're like, yes, this is going to be a fun journey.
Yeah, I think reading the original draft or drafts of Shane's script, which was bigger, longer, much broader, much more expensive, there was a lot packed into that, and there was a lot more packed into that cold open as well, that crawl leads into. There was a lot. I knew it was different and neat in the original drafts for a couple reasons. And one is they originally spent a lot of time developing and introducing these kids, Sean, Patrick, Eugene, Horace, and then Rudy and stuff, to really explain and have exposition that these kids are not just comic book readers. I mean, yeah, they enjoy comic books, but it's all they know their monster lore. They know the literature. They know the old books. They know the old movies. They know everything about all of this stuff. And that was really kind of explained in original pages in the first drafts. And then, of course, it was kind of much more bigger and awesome in that, cold open in the Van Helsing days. Because it was in the original script, I think there was like 100 sailing ships or something storming the beach, and like zeppelins in the sky and stuff, which would have been amazing even if you did it with Matt painting or visual effect. That would have been an amazing kind of look. And that's a very Shane Black-esque and, Fred kind of grand,
Right.
vision of something. And it was much longer. They spent a lot more time there, had a big battle, and a lot of people don't understand that when they say they blew it, and then we just go into the movie, what that meant.
Mm-hmm.
And we all know what that meant because we read it on the page, and they shot the scenes. They just didn't put them in the movie. And they blow it because they actually chase down after this big battle, and they chase down Dracula, Duncan Regier, and they hold him up against a tree, and Van Helsing stakes him right through the heart. And then they go up in the castle to do the thing, I guess, if that was the order of it. But they leave the Dracula's staked body in a wagon, and like I always call him a red shirt, like the red shirt's sitting by the campfire guarding the wagon while they're off. And out of the woods come 3 vampire brides. And he stands up and, shoots one with a crossbow, takes her out. The other one's close, and he jabs her. And then the other one's on him and I guess, choking him and, getting the upper hand. And he's flailing around. His hand lands on a stake, and he takes it and kills her. And of course, everybody knows that when you unstake a staked vampire, they, of course, come back to life. And so this guy defeats him and, has a winning moment that, I survived. I killed 3 vampire brides. And then Duncan Regier sits up in the wagon and looks at him and then goes to the present day. And so that's how they blew it. Because they unstaked Dracula, and he's been walking around for 100 years. They didn't kill him. They didn't get him. And I thought that was a fantastic bit.
Yeah.
And we never see it. And it's just sort of assumed like, they said they blow up. We don't have. So let's just get into the present day movie. And then we also lose a little of that backstory and exposition with the kids of really they are experts and, figuring something out and realizing something's happening, and the adults just won't give them, a chance to explain, or they don't believe them. And, we kind of just jump right into the story when Monster Squad starts, which is actually kind of what a lot of people really like. And, it makes the movie quick, and, it starts and it doesn't really stop, and you meet your characters. A lot of those things are, they're inside the gaps, or you just assume they're in between the lines. And this movie just kind of rolls, and it's a very short 82 minutes, including the cold open. So it's those are always things we always miss in the original script, and plus deleted scenes and some script pages that got chomped down as we were shooting. But that always happens with movies, but you never want it to happen with yours.
Right. So what were some of those early conversations between Shane and Fred where it's like, as you were saying, you don't get all those exposition, but you get these little moments that have the audience, informs the audience so much about your character. And so what were those conversations where it's like, hey, this is like this moment where it really shows like what kind of person you are in this film?
Yeah, and I think, like I said, I think all that sort of just gets trimmed and we jump into it. I don't know, between Fred and Shane, when they were revising, for budget or, shoot days or, a production schedule, I just remember, when you're on set or on the day or on location and you're looking at your pages for the day, because, most people know you don't shoot a movie in sequence and you're jumping around, and it's due to location and timing and daytime or nighttime. And, so you're kind of jumping around the story, and you're just absorbing all this and trying to go and like, that scene got cut, but it kind of mushed into this one. So this is what we're doing. And you just kind of go. But, I think it all worked out in the wash at the end, and you do get those tidbits. You do understand. I always lamented that we don't get the backstory with every single one of these kids of the squad and get, kind of how much they know about each thing. But I don't think it's really lost, like
Right.
you said, you get to understand that they know, and that's always, brevity is always better. Brevity is always better. And, I think it worked out just fine.
Yeah, I appreciate it now watching it as an adult. When I was a kid watching it, I'm really into like what the kids are thinking about. But now watching it as a parent myself, I really like the parents in this film, and like just even them taking just a little bit of time for that dialogue that happens between the two parents about like, we need to do counseling. It's like, you got to show that you love me too. Like, and then him coming on the roof to have a cheeseburger with you, like just those little moments, they mean so much. And that's what I like about being a parent too.
And this is the second mention of that very thing with fans that saw it when we were kids, but now have families of their own, and they see that they watch the movie now, and it's a completely different experience.
Right.
And it doesn't mean they were viewing it wrong before. It's just a different perspective. And that's a fascinating conversation, and it's great that you bring it up, because now it's like that's a thing. And I think that's on purpose. It's not just this rompy kids movie that goes around. There's a lot of shit packed in that Monster Squad story. Whether we get 5 minutes on each little packet, no, but it could be just a reference or a thing, but everybody can relate and understand what it is. Not only is Sean and Phoebe end up in this crazy supernatural adventure with monsters coming out of the sky, but their families breaking up. It's like their parents are splitting. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people admit, an interesting thing, if you didn't see it in the movie theater, you never had a chance of seeing it in widescreen, unless I think you own the Japanese Laserdisc, which was very few of those here in the States. But you always saw it on HBO or VHS or TV, and it was always aspect ratio was mushed and pan and scanned, and you miss a lot of stuff that you missed in widescreen. And no one saw that again until 2006 on 35 in a movie theater at the Alamo Drafthouse, the old one in Austin, Brian. And for instance, with the parent, it's a great scene. It's a great bookend scene of the Sean and Del scene in the bedroom, and then on the roof, like you mentioned. Those are great moments. But there's also a great moment when Emily's tucking Phoebe in bed and they're having a conversation. And it's so confusing because Phoebe's almost the adult in the conversation, and Emily's trying to backtrack and, whittle out of it. And, are you going to yell at him? And she's like, I love your father. She's like, no, Sean, for scaring. She's like, oh, of course you did. Other things in my mind. But then has the candle. Let's talk about the candle there. And that's a setup for a payoff that we get later. And if you never see the widescreen version, you don't get the payoff, because when the mother's in the closet, when shit starts happening, that candle just blinks out in the foreground of the shot. And she even turns around, it's like, something's weird, but the candle goes out. But 20 minutes earlier or whatever, we had a conversation that the candle keeps monsters away, but the candle blinks out. And if you don't see the widescreen edition, you miss that. The other thing, back on track, is with the parents, when after Stan Shaw gets blowed up in the squad car, and Del runs into the house and contacts us on the walkie-talkie, because he's in just dad protective mode, and the wife's there, and she's like, stuff's going down. When he runs upstairs and comes back down, a lot of people miss the luggage by the door. She was gone, she's leaving, she's out, she had it, and so the mom's gone. And if monsters hadn't come to town, maybe the kids would have gone with her, and then leave Del in that. There's a whole other story going on there. And it's just sort of just touched just a little bit. And and then you have a Holocaust reference, with that's hidden after a line about vampires not having reflections, which is a setup for a payoff later that we never get because it wasn't shot. And that's really what I always see Monster Squad, the final product of the movie in '87. It's a series of setups that we don't get the payoffs, and it's a series of payoffs that we don't know are payoffs because we never got the setup. And when you've read the original drafts, because that's how Fred and Shane write, man, they write in overall stories. So you're going to come back around and finish your story, but then there's packets of action and story and exposition, and they're all little small chapters of setups and payoffs, and then you have the big setup and payoff. And Monster Squad's just, all those, some of those just think, think, that's a think, whether they were cut from the page, rewritten, torn out, or shot and not put in the movie. But when some of the stuff that was there, you're like, where was that thing? Where was that thing? You're like, ah. But what you end up with is a movie that everybody related to. It's nice and short. It's 82 minutes total runtime. And that's one of everybody's favorite things, is that it's not 2 hours long.
That's cool. So with the success and fandom of Monster Squad, most actors or people that are part of film are not part of a movie in their entire lifetime like Monster Squad that is timeless and universally loved forever. And there's only a handful of movies and people that can say that do that. And you're part of that with Monster Squad. And I think you were probably the first one to see that that fandom and love appreciation still 20, 30 years later. And and this led you to Wolfman's Got Nards, a documentary which you made. And where was there like a particular moment in time where like we've got to make this, or was it something that's been boiling over the pot for years, or is it something like, oh my God, I just went to this screening, this reaction, there's something here?
You know, I think the moment, I kind of remember the moment when I thought of a documentary, but it was something very different from what we actually have. But that moment was a result of a buildup, or you know, the cumulative experience of, you know, the 7, 8, 9 years prior to that, since the resurgence and that original reunion screening at the Alamo, and then having this kind of, you know, explosion and literal resurrection of a dead movie. And not only a resurrection where people say, we loved it, we just want to let you know, bye. And we're like, oh, that's what we thought it was for like a year or two. We really did. We're like, hey, you know what, this is kind of interesting. You know, everybody likes to get a little, a little attention, and, you know, they're just saying thanks and bye. They are not saying bye. They were like, we have held on to this for 20 years. We're letting you know now. And we've been building on each other for 2 decades, and we're just taking you with us now because now you're aware of this. And then the whole world, and industry responded to that. But really what it was is the culmination, or the cumulative effect in experiencing these en masse groups at screenings or conventions or panels, partnered with these one-on-one interactions with fan after fan after fan, that you realize that you think they're fans to begin with, and they are fans. But Monster Squad fans aren't really fans. They are part of the fabric of the experience of this movie for some reason. And you start to realize that after it doesn't die down. And these one-on-one stories and these interactions that we all started getting with everybody at conventions and screenings and panels and things like that really started to interest me. Because the stories were, you hear the same story a lot. You hear very many different stories, but they were all sort of in the same theme. And the theme was that something connected with this person and ended up impacting their life, and they are not letting it go. And they will not let it go because it is part of them. Like, for some reason, they are really connected to this movie. It transcended just like, I really love that movie and it's so cool to meet you, bro. You know, it's like, yeah, that's awesome. We get that. But Monster Squad fans, like Bryan, you mentioned, I started to realize, and then we discussed it, Ryan and Ashley and I and other people that were involved, was like, there's something different here. Like, it's not, you could be at a huge pop culture convention or horror convention, see all these great people, and they're interacting with fans. But it's not, that fan connection to whatever they're doing over there is not the same thing as they're doing over here with us for some reason. And I became very aware of that after a length of time, and then realized that those stories are very unique in this realm. And I thought those stories were a story. And then I was like, well, it's these fans. Like, the only reason, the original idea, I remember the day I was walking in my neighborhood, having lunch or something, and I come up with these ideas, and I get on the phone, I talk to, somebody I know, or I think I called my sister and had an idea. And I was like, hey, the 30th anniversary year is coming up next year. And we're going to do, probably do 5, 6, big conventions. I'm sure there'll be 10 or 12 screenings, or, one a month or something. What would it look like? I think we need to do something cool. And right at this moment, Ryan Lambert and I had been working on some projects together, and we had our podcast, and, we went to conventions as like a duo, like a team. And we had a little brand called Ryan and Andre, and we had our website and our podcast site. And I was like, maybe I just go out and get like a shitty used camera. And, we're going to go on the road this year. Let's just snap some footage, get some, interaction with some fans, and like do some B-roll of us walking around. And then there's probably 4 or 5 big fans we know in LA that would come and sit down, at my house or something and talk about their experience. And then let's get one of our cool filmmaker friends to like edit it, for, cheeseburgers or something. And then we'll put it on our website. And, or maybe sell it for $1 or a donation, team up something. That was the original kind of idea. And I experimented with that for a little bit and went to one event and kind of did that. It was not good. And I was like, that doesn't work. That's not as good as it should be, because it's not servicing what I think the story is. And at the same time, I was extremely busy because the doc was like third in line of projects, because I was in negotiations with, ironically, Lionsgate at the time for a TV show that was going to be on Comic-Con HQ, that channel that lasted for a couple of years. And that lasted like 6 months. And then right at the same time, I had pitched the show Short Ends, which was kind of a showcase show for shorts and shorts filmmakers, and how it was a hosted show, and we would show 3 or 4 shorts. And I created that show and I pitched it right then. Brian, I actually pitched that at Fantastic Fest and sold that to Nerdist, and it was all at the same time happening. And the doc sort of got sideburnered a little bit, and there's a reason. It was all about timing. And actually, our family's oldest friends, their daughter Jen worked at this company called Pilgrim Studios as a post supervisor, and we were just going to lunch one day. And I said, I'll swing by. I'm downstairs. Come jump in. And she said, okay. And she got in the car and she goes, hey, remember how I've told you that like there's a whole, team of, production guys, that work on my floor that are Monster Squad fans. I was like, yeah, you did mention that. She goes, well, that's one of them right there. I was like, who? And there was just, this kid unloading a truck of gear. And I said, who's that? She goes, I think that's Anthony. I said, his name's, let's go talk to Anthony. And so like I shut the car off and we got out. And that's the whatever serendipitous or sliding doors decision that why we're talking here today. And I've got these things behind me is because I went over to talk to this kid, Anthony. And she goes, Anthony, come on over. And he's like, holy shit. He's like, what's up, man? I was like, how are you? And da-da-da. He's like, big fan. I was like, that's awesome. What are you doing? He's like, I'm unloading gear from a shoot. And I was like, that's cool. And while we were talking, 3 other guys came out of the front door about 30 yards down the sidewalk. And it was Henry McComas, Wes Caldwell, and Aaron Kunkel, who, if you look at the credits of Wolfman's Cut Nards, the 3 main leads of my production team. And they realized who I was. I had met Wes at a screening, earlier that year, but, didn't recognize him because we didn't interface. And we sat and talked. And then we talked about what we're doing. And then Henry's like, we need to have lunch. I said, okay. Because we had mentioned the TV show, the Short Ends, and this doc project. And he goes, wait, you're doing a doc project? He goes, we need to talk about that. And so we went to lunch, and then we came up with this idea, and it happened very quickly. And we ended up kind of breaking the kind of development story of what we would do and how we would pitch it to the executives there. And, not a couple weeks later, I was signing a deal with, Pilgrim Media Group to co-produce and make this documentary with me. And that day was that day of serendipity to meet Henry and the guys. And those guys, especially Henry, because Henry and Wes and Aaron, they shot everything. Henry edited the whole thing, color corrected, broke the story, remolded it as we were going. I was there with them, and they went on the road with us. That was the team, with a couple other people like, Shane and Esteban and Eric sitting in the office doing production management and scheduling. And we just ended up cramming a bunch of stuff in 10 months. And Henry ended up making a fabulous cut.
Oh, it was amazing. And I remember, you bring it to Fantastic Fest for a couple years. And I remember, I believe I did an interview for the documentary. And I remember talking about the Holocaust thing, which always stuck out to me.
Right.
It was really cool. But with that being said, you got your doc ready to be made, and you're going across the country filming, for filmmakers, actors, fans across the globe, which we'll get into in a second. But first, I want to bring up what it must have felt like. It was probably emotional to have all these people who are in the business for a long time, as well as fans and passionate people who've seen the movie, really pour out their heart and soul talking about something they love so much, and then have that come full circle when you premiered it at Fantastic Fest, or the little bit that did happen when the whole cast came back and built the clubhouse. And I've never seen such a reunion of people so happy to be with each other again, like I did with the Monster Squad. So I want to ask you, what was it like, emotionally to go through all of that?
You know, it certainly it was a personal whirlwind, or vortex of uh, emotions, ups, downs, getting knocked on your ass, and just being very joyful and happy about getting to do something that's really exciting, and working with this team that, I mean, these guys worked on this movie every day, all day, while they were doing like another project simultaneously. And I dragged them all over the place. But just like they felt that, they always say this was their job because they worked at the studio and got assigned to make this. But we kind of worked, together. We brought it from the ground up. They never felt like this was their job. They never felt like it was work to work on this project, and I didn't either. I just saw it as a challenge, as something that I knew could be cool if we just cracked it and we figured it out. And we had all of these great milestones to go through that year: the travel, the tour, the invites to London twice, things like that. And then you always know you want to, be able to get the cast together whenever you can. And we had been together a handful of times over the years. The best thing at that Fantastic Fest, when we threw the 30th anniversary kind of fan party and rebuilt the treehouse and had the production display and the wardrobe and stuff. One main thing that was different about that is that was a seminal moment in the production of the documentary, because to do that event, they wanted a 30-minute kind of sneak peek, which ended up being way too long because we ended up showing the highball. It was supposed to be in a theater. And what we needed was probably like a 10 or 12 minute kind of, cut. But they demanded a 30-minute cut, and that helped us create the look and the tone and the feel of what the finished product would be. And so that was a big milestone. Plus we got to shoot awesome footage. But I actually kind of worked with Zach Carlson and the rest of the highball staff and the Fantastic Fest to throw that event while I was on the 17-city Alamo Drafthouse Nationwide tour. We said, we're going to do something at Fantastic Fest. So then I had to tell the guys, Henry, you got to have a 30-minute cut done in like a month while we're still traveling all over the place shooting a movie. And then we're going to go to Texas for Fantastic Fest and get to build a treehouse. And that was insane. Absolutely insane. So
Gave them a lot of cheeseburgers, I hope.
Oh yeah, they all had a blast. But I went there early. It was me, my sister, my wife, and I had Allison Murphy, Jason Murphy, the author's wife. She was amazing. She's the one that built the treehouse and fabricated all the walls and the fake tree. And then my wife sourced all the art inside, because of Sean Robert's list that he posted years ago. And then we went in there and just worked our ass off and built this great display, which I think was one of the raddest things I've ever seen, that this group of people came together to do. And then we got to shoot it, but then we flew everybody in. And my favorite thing about that is, we had Steven, we had Ryan, we had Ashley, John Grease came, Duncan came, and everybody loves seeing Duncan Regier because he's just, this thing. But we got Lisa Fuller to go.
You're not a virgin, are you? No? No, what do you mean, no? Well, Steve, but he doesn't count! Doesn't count!
And that was the first time that anybody's ever really celebrated Patrick's sister in person. And she just ate it up and had a ball, and now she's just been involved in everything, since then. And why not? Who doesn't want to hang out with Patrick's sister? Because number one, and she's in the doc. So, fortunate enough, she sat down and told her experience of, just being Patrick's sister and then kind of being separated from it for a while. But, learning about this resurgence from the outside and then started becoming part of it. And who's not going to put Lisa Fuller on camera? She still looks amazing. She's gorgeous. Right?
And I was in the clubhouse at that time, looking through the binoculars that you had set up that would look through the window to see her, and then she was standing right next to me. That had a little weird meta surreal moment, right? Yeah, I actually asked her. I think I asked her if she'd be okay with that, but I came up with that great idea of let's put a monitor behind this fake window and just have that shot through the window of the treehouse into the tree of her about to take off her robe, which gets the camera snap, which is the joke in the movie. And, it just had it on loop for like 4 hours, and people could go up,
in the treehouse and sit in Rudy's alcove and look through the binoculars or the camera and see, that if I was like, I just thought that was a cool idea. And, she was game for it. And luckily, I just thought it was a neat idea, and hopefully everybody was okay with it.
And that's amazing you got her to come out, because she hadn't been, I guess she wasn't in any of the bonus features of the 2006 Blu-ray release or anything like that. So that's pretty amazing.
And she, never really got invited to like the original, conventions or screenings or everything, because, she's seen as sort of a featured side character. And I was like, I don't think there's anything that doesn't count in this, in this movie. Everybody's a part of the story. There's no unnecessary characters. Even the, atmosphere sheriff, they do it because they all get killed. The pilots in the airplane and the old, bomber freighter plane, they're essential. I'd love to see them at something, why not? But Patrick's sister is very important to the story. And she's very important to Rudy.
Yes. I love that. And so going through making it, was there anything that anybody said that you had never picked up on before that was something new, that somebody brought like a new take or perspective?
Yeah. I mean, there's a handful, and it'll probably strike me in a minute of kind of what that, the top one or two is. But that's what happens when you're on the road and meeting people that you've never seen before, but you're connected by something. You'll end up hearing amazing experiences or stories that you're like, whoa, that's a different, now I'm looking at this, from a different perspective a little bit. Again, like Preston mentioned, now that original generation has kids of their own. So we've heard that a little bit. It started off with, I can't wait to show this movie to my kid. And one great story is very early on, like in 2008 or 2009, we met a fan. I think we're in the East Coast in Maryland or something, and she was like 8 months pregnant. Big Monster Squad fan. She goes, "Here's your next squad member." I was like, "Fantastic!" And so like we took a photo, and I was pointing to her, her belly. She's like, "Get down here and like take a picture with all of us," and like point. I'm like, "Here we go, next squad member." And then 5 years later, I get to meet him, and his name's Milo. And so that was just a neat experience that someone would say that, but then that they would travel to make sure that you get to meet who you were pointing at that couldn't see that day, but 5 years later, you get to meet him. His name's Milo. That's cool. Not very many people get to do that. And if they do, they may not remember that original kind of interaction. But that's what happens with these fans, with these, I don't even call them fans anymore. They're like, it's a different, we need a different title. They're, you know what they are? They're members of the goddamn club. That's what it is. And it's just something different and unique. And now, like on Twitter, like Milo will send videos. Like now Milo's like 10 or 12, but you're like, wait, what is happening here? This is amazing.
Your boyhood there.
Yeah. And I'll tell you one of the most, I remember one of the things that changed your perspective on something is Ryan and I were in Chicago at a convention. It was just Ryan and I. And this guy and his son rolled up to our booth and was like, "This is it. Here they are." And his son with them. And the dad was the fan, but not, the son knew us. So it was like, oh, here's another second generation, dad shows his son. And now they're going to get me and Ryan. This is awesome. And we were just talking. Name was, Matt. And we're like, so you live around here? Like, what he goes, no, we live in Reno, near Reno. I said, Reno, there's a Reno, Illinois? Like, where's that? And he's like, no, Reno, Nevada. And I was like, oh, what do you, like, what do you say? He's like, no, we drove here for this. I was like, wow, you guys drove here for this convention? Because it was one of the big Wizard World conventions, I believe. And he's like, no. He said, we drove here just to meet you and Ryan. And I went, wait a minute, what? Why? He goes, because this is cool. This is stuff we do. We love this movie, and we came on an adventure. I would have brought my whole family, but my sister, my daughter, is ill, and she was going through something. I think it was a renal issue at the time. I can't remember. And she's like, she just can't travel right now, but everybody would have come. But we just made the trip because my wife is at home with the rest of the kids, but they all wanted to come. I was like, Chicago is nowhere near Reno. And I've driven across country like 24 times. It's nowhere near Reno. I was like, man, this is incredible. Let's take photos. And it's great. Well, a couple of years after that fact, we are near Cincinnati for Horror Hound. And who comes around the corner but the entire family? Because we had a big Monster Squad panel. It was, all the guys and the monsters. We had a panel. And here comes the Tappengott clan, all in cosplay as the Monster Squad. And the youngest daughter has her hair slicked. I mean, she's like this big and has her hair slicked back, Ray-Bans on, carrying a bow, leather jacket, boots, and just walks right up and just stands there. And she never breaks character. And I'm like, I don't know how to explain this. And luckily, I was, in the middle of shooting the doc, I knew I wanted to find a way, which is not easy, to shoot something on Warner Brothers lot in Town Square, where the final action sequence takes place. And I don't know how it would work that together. Long story short, I had a contact at the PR department. She worked something out to where it was sort of like, yeah, you can come and be here this day, but you're not really shooting anything, but you're shooting something. It's fine. And I was like, is there any way that I can, because we would have gone and done something just with us, but I was like, there's got to be a fan experience that I can bring a fan that's local in LA or, close to LA, and bring them on the lot to show them Town Square because they've never been on it, unless they've been on the Warner Brothers golf cart tour, which is probably the best studio tour out there. And lo and behold, Matt Tappengott and his family from Reno were driving to Disneyland that weekend. And I said, I'll tell you what, I'm going to ruin half of your commute day, but if you'll leave early and meet me at, I think we had to meet at a restaurant or something. It was like, I was just going to go to breakfast, but I've got a surprise for you. And I said, now follow me here. And we drove onto the Warner Brothers lot. And I said, make sure the kids are in costume. And and I drive them on the lot, and that's the family in the dock that I take in Town Square, and it got to be them. And I think that worked out perfect.
Oh man, what a wonderful story.
I think our hearts are a little heavier right now.
So they drove literally 2/3 across the country twice just to hang out with us. And I was like, if I can make this work, these are the ones I'd really love to make it work for. And it happened.
Oh, that's great. Way to go.
It's not, look, it worked out. A lot of other people helped, but that was a drive. I really wanted to make that, and it just worked out. Look, everything that happened during the shooting of this doc was all timing that came together. And you can, while that's happening, and go, damn, that was great that worked out. Why is this working out so well? Don't even ask. Just go with it. Analyze it later, because you don't want to ruin that streak. There's so much good stuff that happened and so many cool people. Like when we started the doc and pitched the project and started shooting, I didn't know we were going to do that 17 city Alamo Draft House tour. And look what a formative kind of through line that whole thing became to the story of the documentary and the fan experience and the 30th anniversary year. I didn't know we were going to London. I was working on it, but that happened very quickly. Got great stories from all of that. And there's just all these things just ended up falling in place and happening in a very short amount of time. And boy, I put these guys, Wes and Henry and all these guys, through the ringer. And they got up every day and did it. They were editing the movie in real time, the back of the airplane or back of the minivan while they were chasing us around Texas. Well, we were all getting chased by Hurricane Harvey for 4 days. You remember that one.
Yeah.
And that was our tour day. We were in Texas for 7.5 days or 7 days, 8 days. And we started in Houston, and Harvey was a day and a half off of Houston. And then we left Houston and went to Corpus Christi, and then went to Laredo, and then went to San Antonio, and then Austin, and then Dallas. And it was insane.
Oh my.
And we got all that stuff. And just things worked out great. And then at the end of the tour of that 17, cities in 17 days, which everybody thinks that's insane. I was like, but most people don't realize, that's 17 cities in 17 days, but more than half of those locations had double screenings. So we had to do everything twice a night. And so you're really doing like 25 or 26 shows in 17 days and signings and Q&As and all that. And at the very end, we got one of the most powerful stories we have on camera with Sean Decker, you know, telling his experience of him growing up in Waynesboro, Virginia, and what happened to him and how this movie impacted him and changed his life. And you can't script that. You can't plan that. The gear and the camera was done. Like all the guys that sat down, I think they were drinking a beer at the bar. And Sean came up just to get his autograph and photo and just gave me a little tidbit. And I honestly, I've told him the story. I was like, I listened to it and I heard it, but I had like 50 people behind him, you know, that we were all trying to get to and sign. And you kind of rush. And that's when, but I said, wait a minute, tell me that. What did you just tell me? And I was like, would you want to tell that story on camera? He's like, for your documentary? I said, yeah. He goes, I would love to. And I said, come with me. And Henry and all the gear was packed up, Pelican cases shut. And I said, Henry, you've got to get the camera out. Wes, you've got to get a microphone out. And you guys go around the corner. Sean's got a great story. And I had told him this probably, 111 times, in these last 3 weeks. And, we use a handful. This one was different. And, Henry's like, oh my God, okay, let's go. It's great. And then it just wrecked everybody. And it's such a powerful moment in the documentary. And we wouldn't have got that if he had just come up and said, love the movie, it means a lot to me, can I get a photo? Dank, gone. Would never have understood his story, never been told his story, never been able to put it on camera, never been able to fit it in the doc at the perfect spot, and then would not be able to call him our pal to this day.
That's wonderful. Wonderful. See, a lot of stuff has come from this movie and this documentary. I think, like you said early on, these are not fans; they're part of the whole experience, and that's what you capture.
They're part of the fabric. They are. You can come up with whatever. Like I said, they're all in the goddamn club.
Yeah.
And look, I'll tell you what. To get the kick out of just saying that to someone, like I got my Wolfman's got Nards, can I be in the goddamn club now? And then you tweet back like you're definitely in the guy, and they just lose their they're like, that's all I wanted to hear for 30. I'm like, oh, I would have said that 20 years ago. I'm so like, yeah, absolutely you are. And they always know they're part of it, but then they get their badge or something, and I'm like, what's better? Like, what could be cooler than this to interact like that and it actually means something,
Right.
And it just, like you said, it just never stops connecting and leading to other things, weaving fabrics of people and things together, including us. We're all part of that fabric. We just happen to be a thread over here while Sean Decker's over here and Sean Robert's over here and Grace Chan and Sierra Nelly over here. But we're all wove into the same thing, and it's just really weird.
That's cool. Was there any part, because you interview and have a lot of filmmakers and actors talk about this movie, what it meant to them, was there anybody in particular that you were kind of set back like, whoa, you like Monster Squad? I mean, I know why do you not like Monster Squad? But I did not expect you to like it.
Not anybody that we actually have on camera, because we already knew that those were those connections and they were interested in being involved. Usually I get the girls is there anybody that you wanted and didn't get because they're a Monster Squad fan, you just wanted them yes, the answer is yes, and the answer is Ryan Gosling.
Is there any clubs or any squads that you would love to be in? Over the years I'm sure you've become fans of other properties. Is there any clubs that you would like to be in?
Oh, what a great question. If you had emailed me that, I would have had 3 rad ones for you. I'm just going to go with, some of my all-time favorite stuff. I would have loved to have been part of, I just added another one. Sorry. So you're going to get a handful of answers.
All right, bring them.
I would have liked to be a part of the T-Birds in Grease. She swam by me. She got a cramp. Definitely a part of the Good Kid group in Stand By Me.
Hey, you guys. I bet you anything that if we find him, we'll get our pictures in the paper. Yeah, we can even be on TV. Sure, we'll be heroes. Yeah.
Which I auditioned for. Everybody reads for everything. I really wanted to be in Stand By Me. I auditioned for the Teddy Duchamp role, and But would I've done it? Yes. Would I've done it? Okay, sure. Corey Feldman's great in that movie. All four of those kids are perfect in where they are in that movie. I think it's one of the best kids adventure movies. But it's tied for first of my favorite kids adventure movie of the 80s. If I was going to be part of a squad, I'd want to be a part of the Wolverines.
Wolverines! Wolverines!
Because Red Dawn is my favorite all-time kids adventure movie.
And what an adventure it is.
And I'll add another one because I said a handful. I would have loved to have been on the Hickory basketball team in Hoosiers.
All right, listen up. Here's what we're going to do. Jimmy, they're going to be expecting you to take the last shot.
Because I am a basketball player. I was born way too late to really play in the era that I should have been in and would absorb. But I love that time in history, and that's a fabulous movie. So I would have liked to have been on the Hickory squad.
That is great. So, Andre, what is your most thrilling movie experience, both as a filmmaker and as a fan?
My thrilling experience as a filmmaker is probably, and I don't even know what we'll do it with the doc too. But when you're a filmmaker and you're like, oh, this is. I've got a team of people working. This is awesome, but man, we made it happen. And you say cut, for the first time. When you do like director shit, it just you're like, oh my god, like I've just watched, my entire life. I've watched hundreds of people do this, and now I'm doing it. Now I'm that's kind of cool. I think as a fan, I liked going to the drive-in with my dad. And we would go see like Bond. I remember the car. I remember the feel of the seats. And this, I don't even think they had the antenna thing where you ran it through your stereo yet. There's no the shitty box in the window. But I think maybe the first movie I ever saw at the drive-in, or maybe second with my dad, was Octopussy.
Bring him here.
You are the mysterious Octopus.
And you are James Bond.
My dad was, we loved Bond. We loved Bond movies. So I watched a lot of movies on TV or going to the movies with my dad. He was a big spy guy, Cold War movie, Gene Hackman. But I think, I want to go back to what squad I want to be into. I want to be in the Revolution in Purple Rain. I forgot. I forgot one. I forgot. That was the first one that clicked in my head, but then all the other ones came up. I could be, Wendy Melvoin's like, roadie or something. I don't care. Where was I? Oh, so I think as a fan, obviously probably 83. I got invited because I was a kid in the business and, either through my publicist or manager or something, got invited to this Academy screening of the third Star Wars movie. And it was a big Academy screening, a lot of people going, and it's like, this is the last installment of, the Star Wars trilogy. And when if you were a kid and got invited to the screening, it was, the big Academy building on Wilshire, I believe. And just this huge grand event. And you got a swag bag of stuff. And nobody knew at the time that they were going to change the title. And so when we went to this industry screening, this Academy screening of Revenge of the Jedi, all of my swag says Revenge of the Jedi.
Oh, that's amazing. Do you still have it?
I have one thing. I have a button, and that is it. What I wish I had was a couple action figures in boxes, and I got a ship. I got they weren't blister packs back then. The cardboard with see-through window, and all the artwork on the box, and of course it had the logo and the Star Wars, Revenge of the Jedi, and it had the ship, and it was a ship that you don't see anywhere. It didn't exist.
Yeah,
and apparently they replaced it. I think what ended up the ship was supposed to be was the Imperial shuttle that they steal and get the codes and land on the Endorian moon, because the wings come down, and then that ended up being a thing that we see a ton of times in Star Wars stuff now. But this little ship was this little crappy cargo boxy like dump truck looking truck with a can with front and had these wings that came down and then folded up. And it was square and boxy and gray. And me being 10 and seeing this movie, I was like, yeah, I'm a Star Wars fan. And I got cool enough to go to the screening of Revenge of the Jedi. I took all that shit out and played with it for, and then they changed the title. And I didn't know you're not supposed to take collectibles out of the box and use them. I don't know where that shit is now. And I'm like, I wonder what that that would be a cool piece to have.
It really would.
I don't know where it is. As much stuff as I have kept, even from different eras of my life, or that Dorothy, my mom, has stowed away in the garages over years. And there's a ton of stuff. The only thing I have from that is a Revenge of the Jedi button. But that's probably, as a fan, probably the biggest, coolest thing, maybe.
Cool. Well, that's cool. And what are
nerdy enough? Is that nerdy enough? I mean, it's like pretty
not nerdy enough. No. No, that's great. And I guess one of my last questions for you, obviously, I know I've asked you this before, but maybe your tastes have changed in 5 years. But since you're such a purveyor of cinema over the years, what are some of the particular scenes in movies that have always stuck with you, that always inspire, that you wake up and you're like, fuck, that scene's good? Or when you're working and you're like, this scene in this movie is good.
So you guys ask way too good of questions that they need to be like emailed like a day
pre-interview questions.
Yeah, pre-interview questions for the highlights. I'm pretty good at winging it and coming up with cool stuff, but these are awesome. Let's see. Wow. Dead air is terrible, but
no, it's fine. I can edit it.
You can hear my brain.
No, I'll edit it, and I'll just start naming some of my own, so it might spark something.
Do that. I have a couple, and I've actually already mentioned them because they were kind of the coolest, moments, scenes that I love. The first guitar riff at the end when they actually play Purple Rain in Purple Rain. That's a really cool moment. And Wendy's emotional and like they play the song because he finally gives everybody credit. That's neat.
And to add on to that real quick, you've mentioned Prince twice. Are you a big Prince fan? Did you get to see him while he was alive in concert?
I didn't. Dorothy, my mother, has seen Prince in concert like twice, and I never got to see him. Huge Prince fan. I won my 6th grade talent show costume contest because I dressed up as Prince and lip sync When Doves Cry, and I beat Erin Rivlin, and she did an interpretive jazz dance to "The Heat Is On" by Glenn Frey. And she wore a yellow leotard with like streamers coming off her fingers. And it was fantastic, but I was better.
Wonderful.
See, who remembers shit like that except for me? And you know what? I want to, how they recreate photos and stuff? I want to recreate like a photo of me and Erin Rivlin. I want her in the same outfit, and I'll go put on the Prince shit again. I totally want to do that so bad.
Please do that for the new year. Please do that.
And that's all 6th grade. I love that class. I actually posted a photo on my Instagram of that 6th grade class, and I love every single one. I had so much fun in school. And that 6th grade year, we had probably one of the best teachers that has ever walked to this planet, and Mr. Fields and Dr. Fields, but fabulous. And I love every one of my classmates from that time. And some of us are still friends on Facebook and Instagram and in real life. Let's see. Okay, so we said the first order. These are scenes that impacted me. Any of the action sequences of the in Hoosiers, during games, that's great. But when they walk into that huge, Butler Arena, that's kind of a feeling, if you've ever experienced that, of being like, whoa. And I've felt that for real playing college basketball and walking into a giant arena for the first time. So that's kind of neat. Does anything in Starship Troopers count? Like, all those scenes are great. But no, everybody Genius movie, by the way. That's a
It
whole
is.
other
It's
that's a whole other
amazing.
podcast. It's a whole other which I've done 2.5 hours on Starship Troopers with two Scottish dudes. So I think everybody understood me and nobody else. But that was fun. That was Mitch's spying is great. I'll end, since like I can go on for hours with this, but one of my favorite movies is Mr. Holland's Opus.
Mr. Holland, it has come to my attention that you are teaching the students rock and roll.
I will use anything from Beethoven to rock and roll if I think it'll help teach a student to love music.
I love that movie.
And it's such a great movie, and it's because I've always appreciated teachers and I've always appreciated coaches, and because I've had very awesome ones in my life. And I've also I relate to that, because if I probably wasn't doing all the dumb stuff that I've done, I probably would have just been a coach or teacher, and I would have been totally fine with that. And look, I mean, that movie shows that, but it also relates on a different level with me, is because he's a guy that's like, I'm talented, I should do this, I should be a giant star, and I should be a bazillionaire, and I should be making Broadway shows. And that's sort of what, Glenn Holland expected his life to be. And he got caught up in this small town being a teacher because he had to have a job, because he just got, as a young, a guy with his new wife, pregnant wife, and he gets stuck. And, 35 years later, he's retiring. And when that scene at the end, when, his entire student body of his life has come back and plays his composition, and, it's a very emotional moment for him, because they realize that his life was not misspent. And that scene always gets me. Doesn't matter. Mr. Holland's Opus end scene, when he comes in, is my Phoebe and Frankenstein don't go away thing. That gets everybody every time. At the end of Mr. Holland's Opus gets me every time, and a lot of other movies get me every time. But we could sit here for days.
and we will at some point. But I love Mr. Holland's Opus, being, I guess, playing saxophone and clarinet at that time when that came out, and having a teacher like him. It was it hit home.
Yeah. Well, especially the clarinet scene with, the student who ends up becoming governor.
Right.
That was a great character arc and story of the impact. And you're like, the first time you see that, you're just like, Sunk! right in the heart.
It is so good. Well, yeah. Andre, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today. Wolfman's Got Nards documentary. I'm going to throw it to you. The spotlight is on you, maybe in the vein of the Monster Squad itself. Tell everybody where they can find Wolfman's Got Nards as Sean.
Wait a minute. In the vein as Sean. Well, you can find it on Twitter at the Squad Doc. What? Rudy. And I can't even go that. It almost hurts to get that high. That's my bad imitation of myself as a 13-year-old. If you want to follow the documentary, it's you can go to thesquaddoc.com or on Instagram and Twitter, if you've heard of any of those, at the Squad Doc. It's 2 D's in there. And then please feel free to follow me, Andre Gower Official on the Instagram, and at Andre Gower on Twitter. Please also follow awesome people that are connected to the movie, like Henry McComas and Wes Caldwell, and all these awesome people that, love to hear your feedback and love to hear if you enjoy the doc or their other works. And like I said, I'm getting most of the attention for Wolfman's Got Nards right now, because I'm sort of that, front of the gate type thing, but I did not make this movie by myself. It's only out because we ended up with a great, distribution deal and distributed with Gravitas Ventures. But my studio partner, Pilgrim Media Group, which is why I know Henry and Wes and Eric and Aaron and Shane and all these great people that worked on this film. This was definitely not, made by one person.
Awesome. There you go, folks. And we'll hope for a big Criterion release of Wolfman's Got Nards at some point.
Well, if that happens, happens, then something went right. But right now, I just want you to either rent it on VOD or download it digitally and buy it and own it, or get the Blu-ray or DVD off of Amazon, and then we'll see about Criterion. But that would be really cool.
Excellent.
Baby steps, Brian. Again, baby steps.
Baby steps.
Baby steps out of the office.
Very good.